Hello, friends. The other day I talked about, I guess, my disappointment with the playoff system, and I thought I had worked out a good system, a 4-3-3 playoff system with, keeping points and everything. And then, I was testing my hypothesis, testing it using Grok, running through the points from 2017 to 2025. And then I asked it something that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting if I said, "Hey, do a flat 10 race chase with all the playoff drivers, all top 16, would the results change?" And it didn't. So maybe we don't go to a 4-3-3 playoff. Maybe we go to a back to the 10 race chase with just the 16 playoff drivers, because it would effectively get the same result as my points retaining playoff system. But I do think the changes that NASCAR needs to make in order to make the racing better is get rid of the win and you're in to the playoffs, get rid of the cautions at the ends of stages, because it changes the strategy and the math if you know you're getting a stage break and a caution where you can go and pit and do everything and then you get a restart. When you take away those restarts that are built into the race, I think that really changes the calculus for fuel and tires and everything. I do think it'd be good to keep the stage points. I think, we keep the scoring effectively the same, but lose the cautions. I think that would be really interesting. So lose the cautions, lose the win and you're in. Let's make this a purely merit-based point system and see how that plays out. Because in my analysis, it basically was, if you do the 4-3-3 setup I had, where you retain points and it ramps up each round of the playoffs as far as how many points you get, or if you keep a flat 16 team or 16 car 10 race chase, it effectively works out the same. Because I don't like the idea of resetting points, because it erases the rest of the season. It erases all that work that was done. It erases that guy like Harvick in 2020 who had 9 wins. It erases Denny Hamlin having 6 wins and all those top 5s and all those top 10s. Maybe we adjust the points. Maybe that's something that we think of in the postseason. Maybe it's a different point structure. Maybe you double the points, something like that. But I do think you need to make it so that it is a 36 race point system, so that you actually crown the guy who did the best the whole season. That driver, that racer who dominated, should not be penalized for dominating. They should be rewarded. They should be, yes, those points accumulate over the season, and you're going into that final couple races, and that's where the drama is. Could, in theory, a driver clinch early in that setup? Yeah. Yeah, but that would also mean that driver is so dominant the whole year that they deserve it. It's kind of like in hockey when one team, like, I'm a Red Wings fan, and there have been many years throughout history where the Red Wings have clinched the best record in all of hockey way early in the season. And it's just like, yeah, they were dominant. They had the best record. They were scoring, just that's a good thing, I think. And so I know there are, what is it, the Matt Kenseth year where he clinched, and there were a bunch of races left and people felt like, well, he's already won. But there's still those individual races. So there's a lot of racing to go on, a lot of champions to be crowned for each of those individual races. But the season champion, that should be the most merit-based, point-based, longevity, consistency. You should be looking at the whole season, not just, did you win that one race? And so I guess that's my thought right now is, I think either you could keep my 4-3-3 system with the eliminations, and it kind of keeps that playoff feel. Maybe that's great for television and storylines, but it wouldn't really change the outcome from a 10 race chase or the 4-3-3 system I set up. It would just create drama. So Maybe that's what we're looking for. Maybe that's what the TV story needs, is that little bit of added drama. But I actually think you would get that by, basically introducing a points ramp in a 10 race chase, or a points ramp in a 4-3-3 setup, or maybe you don't do a points ramp at all. Maybe you keep the points exactly the same and just say, look, you've got to win. And if you clinch with 5 races left in the season or 7 races left in the season, so be it. There's still a lot of money on the table, a lot of victories on the table, and people can improve their position. But you've done so well, you put yourself so far out ahead of everybody that there's no mathematical way for them to catch up, then hell yeah, you should be crowned the champion. So let me know what you think. I want NASCAR to improve. I want it to regain viewership. I want people to come back to the sport. I find F1 and Indy, like, they're interesting, but they don't have the excitement. They don't have the banging, the beating, the hitting the wall, the competitiveness. They don't have that, crashing into each other, beating and banging. Just like, they don't have that. There was a race in Monaco several years ago there was not a single pass in the damn race. Like, what kind of fun is that? Like, okay, you qualified best, you get to win. Single file racing for an entire race where it's like, all right, let's just go around the track. Everybody nose to tail and nobody passes. That's not exciting. I like that, door to door racing where, you're jockeying for position. There's so much more adrenaline and action in NASCAR than there is in F1 and Indy. F1 and Indy have their place. I mean, great driving, phenomenal machines. But there's something more about stock car racing. There's something more about NASCAR. And that's what's special about NASCAR, is that it has that extra that the other series don't have. It has that violence. Maybe that's, maybe it has those spectacular crashes, those spectacular, like, storylines that I feel like F1 just doesn't. F1 to me is like, yeah, that guy's a really great driver. He's on really expensive equipment. And they race single file, nose to tail, and nothing really happens. Every so often you'll get a pass. But in NASCAR, you're passing all the time. And I think that's where increased horsepower next year. We know we're getting more horsepower. I would say ramp it up even more, but I saw the president of NASCAR talk about how that would cost a lot more money to get a bigger horsepower, because they'd have to basically start redesigning engines overall. So I think that just needs more lead time for them to do it. Give them a couple years. I think you'll build up engines that will now be able to go from that 750 mark, maybe up to the 900 mark, because these guys are talking about, super minute changes in order to really maximize, power and efficiency and everything. So there's a lot of money that goes into engine development. So I understand that. But I do think more horsepower. I think Goodyear's been doing a good job with the tire fall off, because, you need the tire fall off in order to make tire strategy part of the game. And so, yeah, I think there's a way to, bring the sport back to its greatness, bring it back to Dale Earnhardt era, the Bobby Allison era, the Labonte era, Rusty Wallace, Darrell Waltrip, Michael Waltrip, all, like, I hear all these names and they are so prominent in my mind from when, the 80s and 90s, and it just, I miss it. I feel like, Dale Earnhardt's still my favorite driver. I will go back and watch a Dale Earnhardt race just for fun, just on a Thursday night for no reason. Dale Jr., I love watching Dale Jr. win. Michael Waltrip, awesome racer. Like watching him win. I've gone back and watched Greg Biffle win, because I've learned a little bit more about Greg Biffle now that he's hanging out with Cletus, and watch a bunch of his wins. It's just, the racing isn't the same. I want the racing to improve, and I think there's so much potential to kind of bring back the greatness without the risk to safety, without the risk. We don't want the big crashes anymore, but unfortunately crashing is part of racing, so you're gonna have some crashing. But what can I say? I want bring back the personalities, the fire in the belly. You know what? I just heard Kenny Wallace talk about, Kevin Harvick, coming across the hood of a car to basically get in somebody's face because of what they did in a race. Like, I think one was Greg Biffle, another one was Dale Jr. There's something about NASCAR that to me is the premier racing series in the world, because the other ones, yeah, it's good driving, it's expensive equipment, but it doesn't have that added side by side, door to door racing that stock car racing has. It's the open wheel racing, because of how dangerous it is to hit wheel to wheel with open wheels. It changes how you race. You're not, yeah, I'm gonna hit you in the side and pass you because I have to squeeze in there in that little spot, or I went a little too fast and I spun out and I sideswiped the wall and careened into somebody and it just caused chaos. Like, I don't know, maybe the chaos is part of what makes NASCAR so exciting. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. This is just stream of consciousness coming out of me, but as I said, I love racing. And I just want to bring the sport back. I want to, elevate it. More people should be watching NASCAR than there are currently. Let's make it awesome again, because there's just something about the smell of, the engine, the exhaust fumes, the race gas and Castrol, the tiny pieces of rubber flying all over the place. There's just something about it that makes NASCAR so special. And but I think one of the big factors is literally just the fact that it's a little bit more violent. The fact that there's door-to-door banging. You're bumping into each other. You might accidentally spin somebody out, or you might intentionally spin somebody out. It has more personality and character than the other racing formats. Same thing with drag racing. I feel like drag racing, these guys, they show their personalities, and then for 3 to 5 seconds, 3 to 8 seconds, whatever it is, they're locked in, they do their job, and then they show their personality again afterwards. So, Tony Stewart was talking about that the other day. Like, Tony Stewart, what a character. Like, we need those larger than life personalities in NASCAR, because you like to see Tony Stewart angry, getting in somebody's face. You like to see Kevin Harvick, getting in somebody's face. Now, I don't want to see fighting. I think fighting, you punch somebody in pit row, you should probably be arrested. That's assault. That's illegal. So I don't want that. But getting in somebody's face and arguing and saying, hey, I don't like that, 100%. So, it's just one of those, like, that's why, I will still watch the races from the 80s on YouTube. I will fall asleep on the sofa listening to it, because there's something about the audio quality that is just calming to me. The drone of the cars, the sound of the announcers from those old race series. You'll recognize the voices, especially if you watched them as a kid, and it's super comforting. I will frequently fall asleep on the sofa late at night with a NASCAR race running from the 80s or 90s. And one of my favorite races to watch, I'll end the video here, but one of my favorite races to watch, and I've watched it many times, is the 1979 Daytona 500. I believe it was Dale Earnhardt's first NASCAR, like, official NASCAR race. He didn't win, but on the last lap, Cale Yarborough, and I think it was might have been Bobby Allison. I can't remember right now. But there's massive crash right at the end on the last lap, just chaos. But the unique thing about that race is that it was apparently it happened. I was too young to remember. Apparently it happened during a massive blizzard, and so it was kind of the introduction of NASCAR to most of North America, because the football games got preempted because of snow, and so this was kind of the last thing that was happening, because it was happening in Daytona, Florida. And it's just one of those, it's a great race, definitely worth watching. Cale Yarborough, epic racer from back in the day. And I just, all those names, Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, like the Allison brothers. There's a whole family of Allisons. The Labonte brothers, you name it, Rusty Wallace, Daryl Waltrip, Michael Waltrip. I mean, so many names I'm just blanking on right now that Ricky Rudd, just, even Kenny Wallace later, like these were just names that I just stick out in my mind. And we need to bring that I don't know, level of I don't know if it's celebrity or just notoriety or just prestige back to the sport. I want those characters. Maybe I just want the characters back where you actually, these guys have personalities, because some of these racers today just, they give the corporate answer and you just feel like that's a non-statement. That's why people love it when Garrett Mitchell puts on his Cletus McFarland sort of persona. He's talking about, I was like a bald eagle flying down the front stretch. And it's like, yeah, it's a caricature. He is playing it up. He's hamming it up for the cameras. But how fun is that? I got to give Cletus, Garrett Mitchell, a lot of credit for getting me back into motorsports. I'd become jaded. I think a lot of sports fans had, or racing fans had become jaded over the years, where it's just kind of like, oh yeah, it is what it is. But when you bring that fun back, when you get fun back into motorsports, and all right, let's give you an example, and then I'll wrap up this video. Ryan Preece, the number 60, actually participated in the Cletus's event, Garrett Mitchell's event, the New England 900. This is a race, I think, in Connecticut, and I guess that's probably where Ryan Preece is originally from, because he said he was very familiar with the track, and so he raced it, and he won. And in the post-race interview, this is a Crown Vic race, and these Crown Vics that are basically identical, they're just beaten up old cop cars put with roll cages and nitrous. And the great thing is, as a driver, you just show up and race. You don't have to worry about equipment, tires. If you crash the car, you don't care. It's a Crown Vic that was bought at auction. So it allowed, and I'm interpreting for, but it allowed Ryan Preece to not care about cars or sponsors or anything else but going out on the track and having fun. And he won that, and he got the trophy. And then, this is completely just my analysis here, after the New England 900, Ryan Preece started doing better in NASCAR again. He started getting top finishes again. He started placing better at the end of races. And I think, and this is, again, purely my speculation, that he found the fun in driving again. And when you find that fun, I don't know, it inspires you. It makes you drive a little better, I think. And so ever since winning the New England 900, Ryan Preece has been on a freaking tear. And he's one, again, I've told you many times, like, I don't have an individual driver that I like. I cheer for like 15, 20 different drivers, just depending on how well they're doing. And I'm kind of more of like, again, a general sport. I like the sport. I want to see the best racer win. I want to see the best racer on that day, the guy doing the best job that day, getting the victory, because that's what the sport demands. And I can't, again, after Ryan Preece found the fun in driving again, I feel like he did better. And so, maybe these drivers need to take it less seriously. Maybe they need to, get some more fun back into it and realize, like, yes, this is their job. But how awesome is their job? They get to race cars for a living. They get to drive 190 miles an hour and race for a living. They get to do the thing they love for a living. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Comment below. It's kind of went all over the place, but I don't know. I thought it was fun. As I said, I'm a race fan, and I just want to see NASCAR in ascendancy. I want to see more people come into the sport. I want to see more people going like, yeah, that was a great race, and I just, yeah, I don't want the sport that I really like to die. So, hey, go out and watch a NASCAR race. Now, the next race is going to be the Daytona 500 in February. So it's going to be a couple months, but hopefully you'll be watching too. So, all right, talk to you soon. Have a great day, and do it for Dale.